So, is anything missing? So, the piece we were talking about the other day about what the literature refers to as the addictive search. You're looking for something, something's missing, you're not sure what it is, so you're doing what everybody else does in an attempt to find it without necessarily knowing that something's missing. So, when you ask who you are there missing answers? So, as an example, this is Introduction to Addictive Behaviors. Come on now. Been asked many times. What is the safest drug to do? Aspirin's pretty good. Baby aspirin.
Well, my friend was taking it daily and didn't realize that he had an ulcer, and it ate into one of his arteries in his stomach. Gee, guess what? He was in the hospital because he lost 4 pints.
Almost 4 units of blood? That's almost his entire blood supply. Internally bleeding?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, he was sick for like a week.
Okay.
And it was advised by a doctor for him to do that.
All right, so
there you go.
that's an iatrogenic disease, which we'll learn about later in the pro class if you want to know about that. Anyway, safest drug to do, right. Just because it's legal does not mean it's safe or safe for everyone in every context. So I had a better question I have a better question for the people that asked me this. Well, the question really is, why are you looking for answers in drugs or addictive behavior? What are you looking for in the drug experience? What exactly are you looking for? Now, some people say, well, I'm doing psychedelics for self-exploration. I'm doing ayahuasca. I'm doing club drugs. I'm doing K. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Self-exploration. I'm reading Terence McKenna. That's why I'm eating mushrooms, or whatever it is. So I'll call this kid Opie, real person, because Eugene is Mayberry. Really? All right. So Opie wasn't from here. He was a nerd. So all of you have been to high school, right? At least once, whether you finished it or not. Doesn't high school suck? You loved high school? Okay, well, I loved high school too, but I also noticed that there were these cliques, what we call cliques or whatever, right? People could be mean in high school, yes, all right? So Opie wasn't from here. He was a nerd, meaning read a lot, knew a lot of stuff, could talk at a level where, brilliant kid. But he's from another state. And so when he comes here and you're the new kid in the classroom, you've ever had that experience, not everybody's accepting. And so here's, because I'm a black nerd, so I'm big on research. So I know what it was like to try and fit in a new school, and who was accepting and who wasn't, and why I was accepted and why I wasn't. So it wasn't about my athletic or academic ability. It was my excellent suntan. They were jealous, I guess. I don't know, whatever. So this is a white kid in a mostly white school. He comes there, and the research shows us that in high school cliques, also in middle school cliques, one of the problems that people have is adjustment to transition to major stressors. So he moved states, mom had a new job, new school. Who does he fit in with? The research showed us the most accepting group in school are the drug users. So that's where he went. And I was the hip, groovy drug counselor in Churchill High School. Now that you know where this is, right? So, right? Inquisitive, socially inept, trying to fit in with the in crowd, and the in crowd was the drug users and the upper crust drug users. So, in crowd was the rich party kids. So I watched him go from non-use to flaming acid head in 2 months. And he, when you're learning a new skill, and drug use is a skill, when you're learning a new skill, you like throw yourself into it enthusiastically. And I hate to sound like a grandpa, because I am a grandpa, but you know, people who like are going up to the cell phone tower to smoke weed, or going to the nature trail to smoke weed, and it's like, okay, we already know why you're doing that, and public safety sees you. Like, okay, do we not have basic street wisdom? Is nobody training street wisdom? Because it's an illegal drug. And you don't do illegal things, obviously, where you're going to get caught. Hmm?
It's going to be illegal everywhere except for Washington. Next month.
We'll see. Still federally illegal, so. All right. So I watched him go from non-use to flaming acid head. He'd come in actually and talk about last night's party or acid trip at the top of his lungs with the door open in my office. Like, if you've been to my office, you know, there's an inner office, and I can close the door if you want privacy, right? It's expected. Well, at Churchill, I had my own office conveniently next to the nurse's office for people who actually came to school drunk and passed out more than once. That was convenient, but he wouldn't hear of it. Yeah, I don't care if anybody knows. Really? So yeah, and other kids would say, come on, why are you doing this? So, naturally, people thought he was stupid or showing off or whatever. Take your pick. Not streetwise, any of those things. So he actually had tried to get him into treatment at the time.
How do you go to treatment for acid?
He was actually starting to do the pattern of garbage head, but you asked. Is that a question you all want answered?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Okay, so LSD is, if it's pure, because
You don't get pure.
can I say, I knew Owsley, I could get pure. But I'm not sure these kids can here.
No.
Okay.
I don't think
So,
they're willing to pay for pure.
yeah, so anyway, if it's pure, right, it's physically non-toxic at street doses. In fact, the LD50, remember that term? It's in your chart. Come on. The LD50. Lethal dose for 50% of whatever you tested it on. The LD50 for LSD is 1 gram. Pure LSD, which is about 5,000 human doses at 150 micrograms each. A lot. And they figured that out because the University of Oklahoma gave 3 grams to an elephant. The elephant died in an hour and a half of a heart attack because they gave the elephant a dose based on its body size instead of its brain weight. Right? So it's kind of like being bitten by a Gila monster. Basically how Gila monster toxin works, it's basically an overdose of serotonin. So your own breathing puts you into a paralyzed state and you die of suffocation.
Wait, so how many drops would that be?
Well, it's
Die.
well, you know, you get paper acid, and theoretically when it's been tested, you know, we've gotten, you know, 60 micrograms per little square, so that's why kids are doing multiple squares. You know, what we used to, when we got a tab of Orange Sunshine back in the day, of Owsley or whatever, 300 mics to a barrel, you know, do a half a window pane, whatever the, you know, the form of acid was. So LSD is physically non-toxic. That's not the danger. Okay? The danger is actually what it does to you mentally. All right? So there's basically tolerance goes up the more you use it, and unlike other drugs, it disappears with abstinence. So you can actually go back to the level that you're at. So physically, it's not addictive. But having said that, you understand that drugs can be addictive without being physically addictive, right? So my friend Bruce, hey Bruce, now a drug counselor, in our high school, he had the record for most consecutive days on acid in school, and then broke his own record. So 90, then 120. I don't know, who drops acid and comes to school? Well, Bruce and lots of people. Would that be an addictive pattern? Yeah. Right? So there's an example of an addictive drug. And so here's what happens with acid. Basically, most psychedelics, but particularly with LSD, since we got this model from there, it's about set and setting. Okay? Your mental set when you take it and the physical setting. So what it does, it competes with serotonin for receptor sites, so all this data starts flooding in. The subject-object relationship disappears because that's a matter of your neurotransmitter balance. So what happens is you see your thoughts out there. Don't think about pink elephants. No, really. Don't think about pink elephants. Stop. No pink elephants. Okay? Now, the pink elephants that you are now thinking about, right? You can't see out here, but on acid you would, among other things. This can be upsetting to people. It becomes a traumatic experience from the brain's point of view, because remember, all drug experiences from the brain's point of view are like dropping a safe on it, continually, every time you dose. Right? So, I'm a veteran of about 20 acid trips, top shelf acid. Didn't, make me crazy, but I saw some pretty horrific stuff. There's rules like don't look at the sun, right? Don't look at the sun. Don't look in a mirror. So I watched myself turn into the devil and an angel. That freaks people out, seeing that kind of stuff, right? So the danger with LSD isn't physical, it could be mental. It could be traumatic mentally, depending on what you see, what happens, how you handle it. For me, having that experience, I've got good and evil in me. Oh, right. But the experience. So for me, cumulatively, I never had a bad trip. They were all spiritual, but I saw some stuff that was pretty unsettling. And I stopped because there was one time when I took acid where I felt the electric body feeling, but consensus reality didn't change. That was one of the final lessons. Life is already psychedelic. You don't have to take a psychedelic. Just do the right things. More on that later.
So could I clarify my question just a teeny bit? I guess I really meant, where would you go for treatment? Because
you'd go anywhere, basically, because you just give them the primary drug. And so here's one of the things where remember what we talked about with dual diagnosis? Okay. It's a dual diagnosis problem, except now the problem is a permanent trauma based on an experience. Well, that's how we conceptualize it. right? So as an example, you know, when I say PTSD, we call them flashbacks. Flashbacks is an LSD term, right? So I've had LSD flashbacks, haven't dropped acid for 20 years, since 83. But even then, 6 months after I dropped, I saw this, out of the corner of my eye, an electric blue puddle of water form on the ceiling and then drip to the floor in a single continuous, very bright shining line and then disappear. Now that's not particularly traumatic, but why then? Is that something I saw? What? I mean, what is that? What? You know? So the idea then is that it's memory. Flashbacks are memory. That's why we developed that whole model about PTSD. It's memory coming up. And it comes up in a way that the brain mind thinks is safe for you to review. Right? So he actually wanted to know how to make drugs because then it could make them better than those dopers. On and on. So one day I fed up, I stopped him by saying, "What are you looking for?" He says, "Huh? What do you mean? What are you looking for?" So in the trade, we call it the addictive search. People aren't always aware they're searching for anything, let alone searching for something they don't know about. So Opie's journey led through attempted suicide, drug treatment, the military, into martial arts and human services, working with kids like him. So what had happened is 3 months into him being at the school, he calls me up, says he's going to take a swan dive from the Overpark downtown. Had a bad acid trip. He wanted to end his life. He was calling to say goodbye. Really? Just from LSD? I thought that, but didn't say it. I couldn't put him on hold. Couldn't call the cops. Don't try this at home. I said, after all I've been through with you calling to say goodbye from the Overpark? No. You got any respect for me, you come say it to my face. Say goodbye to my face. Oh, you won't let me leave. You can walk right out the door. Click on his end. Call the cops. Well, we can't do anything. There's nobody there. All right. He shows up an hour and a half later. Close the door. We're going to treatment. You said I couldn't go. You said you'd let me go. I'm trained to believe that if you really wanted to do yourself, you would have done yourself and not come in. Now that you're here, it's save your lifetime. He said, I want a locked facility. Okay. Off we went. He calls me from treatment 3 weeks later and he says, I know what I was looking for. What? You don't remember when you said, what are you looking for when you asked me in your office? Oh, yeah, right, okay. What are you looking for? I'm looking for a friend. So you mean if we had taught you how to make friends in a new school, you wouldn't have had to go through all the things that you went through? So he goes through treatment. Decides, I said, what you need is a mind-body discipline. Some martial art or something. Well, no, I want to go into the military. Okay, well, you could do that. You develop the discipline without going into the military, but he decided to go into the military anyway. So what happened with him, and I often say this, especially with training pros, someday you are going to meet you as a client. Have fun with that. But actually, no, prepare for that. And he did. And so he basically developed, got out of the military, became belt rated in Taekwondo, and there's actual tears in his eyes when he described the 10-year-old white kid. You heard me talk about 10-year-old white kids breaking bricks. that was his kid, that he trained to do that at the Taekwondo college here.